It seems like every year, tens of thousands, maybe even hundreds of thousands of traders try to come to the stock market in order to sit there in the pursuit of really huge gains. And along the path, they learn about how to draw trend lines, and they learn how to read an earnings report. And somewhere along the line, they'll hear about chart patterns. And they'll give it a passing glance, and, they'll may flip a few pages and look at a few graphs and maybe spend some time looking at charts and see if they can find something. But, inevitably, it kind of gets left to the side, and it gets swept away thinking, I know that, or that's kind of old-fashioned, or that's old school. I want to learn about the latest indicator, or the next biggest trade setup by the guy that won some world championship or some guru. And it's kind of a shame, because the secret to price action is really kind of in front of them. The secret to trading success is in front of them, and that's because the study of price action in the stock market is really everything. Price action tells you when to buy, when to hold, when to sell, or when to step aside. And one of the ways that price action expresses itself is through price patterns. And if you don't spend any time really delving in to price patterns and what they are and how they form and what they mean, then you're really putting yourself at a disadvantage against people who do. Now, the reason is that because in the stock market, price action is the language of the market, and through this language, the market's trying to tell you what is going on. And chart patterns reflect the psychology of the traders that are making up a particular market. Now, when you learn how to interpret that, not predict it, but interpret that price action, then you're really putting yourself in a very powerful position to be able to profit. William O'Neill, the publisher for Investors Business Daily and a legendary trader in his own right on Wall Street, he did a hardcore historical objective analysis of the biggest winning stocks in the stock market. And among the common themes that he found were that there were price patterns, specific price patterns that showed up in a stock's price action right before it began its huge monster move. And by looking and learning how to spot these price patterns, he put himself in a position to where he was able to buy a seat on the New York Stock Exchange, make a lot of money as a trader, and created the own seed capital of a huge modern-day publishing empire and success story in American business. Now, O'Neill's had a lot of disciples and devotees to his method. It was known as Can Slim. And one of the people that had followed his methods, who was very dedicated to it, was a guy named Dan Zanger. And he's probably one of the greatest traders out there that nobody's ever heard of. And back in the 1990s, Dan was a pool contractor up in California, and he had inherited about $100,000 and tried his hand at the stock market and just got shellacked, got his head kicked in, lost about $89,000 of it, but he kept going on. He was really dedicated, and he had studied O'Neill's methods, and after having some success with it, he expanded his knowledge into other price patterns, where O'Neill dealt with maybe a handful or less of price patterns. Zanger looked at the other price patterns and found that some were pretty worthless, but there were others that he could capitalize on. And he took an $11,000 account and ran it up to just over $43 million. Now, that's huge. I mean, I wish I could do that. He was at a good time in the 1990s when the market was taking off. He was fully margined all the time. And the guy just had a set of brass balls that was willing to sit there and play on the edge to a degree that I'm not comfortable with, and I think a lot of people wouldn't be comfortable with. But he is a success back then, and he's a success today, still trading, though he is much more conservative now. But the point is that his performance, while it's more than likely you and I are never going to hit those kind of numbers, it is an example of the type of potential that's out there if you take the time to really understand chart patterns and master a very powerful tool. And here's the good news, is that they form every day, every week. There's literally the opportunity of a lifetime that develops in the stock market through price patterns. There are thousands upon thousands of stocks, and where other people will see chaos and not understand what's going on, if you master the fundamentals of these very powerful tools, then guess what? Then you're going to be in the best position to be able to profit, where people are either too scared to act or making some really tragic errors that will end up costing them money. But you will come out on the other side much more successful and much more profitable.